Hi, this is my review of the Wild West virtual box set by 01 Games. This box set contains maps and plans of different adventure sites and a map of the entire region for a Wild West campaign. Whether you are playing a Wild West role-playing game or skirmish game or war game, and even many different subgenres, perhaps something along the lines of steampunk, perhaps a science fantasy game that also features some elements of the Wild West flavor, you will find the maps contained in this virtual box set quite useful. Now let's talk about the quality of this virtual box set. As expected of 01 Games, the quality is excellent. Everything is well organized. The resolution is so beautiful, everything is really clear. But first, let's take a closer look at the characteristic button of 01 Games, which is the Rule the Dungeon button. With the Rule the Dungeon button, you can play around with the different elements of the maps. You can activate and deactivate the feel of the different walls. You can also switch if you want a square grid or a hex grid or no grid at all. You can also switch the metric system on and off. You can remove the doors if you want. You can also remove the furniture and even the text. So you can have the look and feel of the map just the way that you want it. If you want to create your own furniture and other items within different rooms, if you want a space to place some other elements, and if you want to present the maps as handouts to your players while removing the text so that they are not clued as to what they could find in different sections of the map, this button is perfect for that. You also have a button to orientate the different regions. That is, you can choose the direction of the north. You also have a box that you can check to print the north mark on the maps. You can also print all the blue maps or all of the black and white maps just by pressing one of these buttons. You also have a legend of the symbols commonly used in these maps. So overall, the way that you can play around with the elements of the map and tweak different options, it's perfect, really easy to use, and really easy to understand, considering you have an entire region and different sites within that region. This box set contains 11 booklets, each one detailing all of the floors of different adventure sites. Let's take a look at the Federal Bank first. As expected of a Wild West setting, the bank is useful. If you are playing as bandits or bank robbers, you will probably be assaulting this place. But if you are on the side of the law, maybe you are a sheriff and his deputy perhaps, you will be preparing a defense or even set up a trap for the bank robbers. So you have the ground floor and the first floor. So you have different ways of approaching this bank. Maybe you don't want to just go through the main entrance. You can also perhaps infiltrate through the upper floor. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a violent encounter. Maybe you're just meeting someone inside the bank. You also have the plans or the details of the rooftop. And something that I really like of all of these booklets is that they present to you different views of the building. And this feels somewhat retro, as if it almost feels like a video game of sorts. Of course, you can focus on the immersiveness from a real-life perspective, but just looking at it from different angles and seeing through the different sections, it feels so retro, so old school. Really nice. And maybe, for example, if someone is going to infiltrate or go into this bank, and maybe they already know the layout inside, they could make their plans of how to go in, take the money, and escape. And you also have, at the end of each booklet, different sheets that you can use to mark the different key areas of each structure. So some of them are actually pre-filled. In the case of the bank, you already have the entrance, the gate, the stairs, and you can write some short notes on the right side, make some short descriptions of what they can find in each particular key encounter. And then we have the drugstore. This seems like a really good place for some side quests or missions. Perhaps the characters have been hired to gather some herbs and minerals to create some medicines. Perhaps it's somewhat like a weird West type of setting. Maybe an alchemist is running this drugstore. But maybe the characters are also looking for a specific shipment of substances and reagents, and they are trying to get into this drugstore. And there are many places you can see from the blueprints that will serve for cover if a gunfight breaks out. So it's a very interesting building to have not only investigations within, finding some particular item, but you could also use it to have some interesting battle encounters. All of the plans and the sections of different floors are quite clear, and you also have that perspective from different sides. Really awesome. All of the angles are noticeable and clear. And if you already know the inside as well, you could also make your plans on how to get into this building. And then we have the fort. This is going to be particularly useful if you are playing a sort of like a war-themed Wild West game. Perhaps it's a Union versus the Confederacy type of situation, or maybe it's the other way around. You can protect this fort, or maybe you have to enter it and perform some sort of stealth operation or hit and run or guerrilla warfare. Or maybe you could use this fort as a hub, as a center or base of operations for the player characters, and you could set forth from this hub to have different adventures around the region. There is a lot of clarity, and you can get the general layout of the different sections of the fort with the front and side view. Very useful and perfect to be used perhaps as a handout for your players. And then you have the house of the mayor. Now, the mayor's house could serve as an important place for meetings. If your patron is the mayor himself, you will probably be visiting this place time and again, getting some more information, reporting your findings. Perhaps you are chasing down some villains and you are talking with the mayor about your progress, or maybe the mayor is quite corrupt and you need to go into his house and gather some clues or incriminating evidence. So there are many different ways in which you can use this place as an adventure site. And then you have the mission. If you're playing a horror game or a Weird West type of game, this is going to be a perfect place. If there is some sort of like a zombie apocalypse in the Wild West, this is the perfect building for that. And maybe there are some creepy cultists running this temple, and you could have some secret entrances, and maybe they will take you through some ceremonial tunnels or mysterious hideout of sorts underground. So if you want to add a touch of weirdness, I think this is a great map to use and to play around with different concepts of mystery and secrets and hidden agendas. And then we have a full color poster of the entire region. I think this is going to be particularly useful for those campaigns in role-playing games or in war games that feature a lot of battle, particularly mass battles. You could play around with the scales and the objects and sections of the map to fit any sort of scale or any sort of conflict. But this is already divided in 6 quadrants, so it's going to be quite useful. And all of these different squares, you can click on them and print that particular section of the map, or you can go to that section as a hyperlink. So as you can see, you have the entire layout of the region, many different places. You have a clear view of the town with the saloon and the barbershop and the mayor's house. You have different ranch sites. You can also see mountains and canyons. If you want to place some hideouts or some abandoned mines or some places where perhaps treasure was hidden, I think you will be satisfied with the versatility of these maps for the placement of such things. Now let's talk about the Saloon. The Saloon is one of those iconic places in Wild West games. You can obtain so many good things in a saloon if you know how to move around. You could find some people that are looking for skilled individuals that do not ask too many questions. So you could get some jobs on the side, or maybe that could be the start of an entire campaign. And you can gather information and make important contacts. There are always all sorts of people going in and out of the saloon. And for example, maybe there is a hooker and one of her clients is one of your rivals or your enemies, and you can make it profitable for her to give you some information that she gets out during a moment of passion with your enemy or your rival, and she could help you thwart that enemy's plans or move ahead of him. It's also common for fights to break out inside a saloon, be it a gunfight or a fist fight. And these maps offer many places for some exciting and interesting battles, with many places, many furniture to use for cover. And you can move around the different rooms. Adds a bit more strategic and tactical depth to the entire encounter. You can also use a saloon as a base of operations, of course. Maybe your character works there, or maybe it's like a secret hideout. So if the saloon is attacked, I think it's going to turn out into a really action-packed scene where you are constantly moving around, checking the windows and the doors, keeping the enemy from getting inside, returning fire and such. So maybe you have to defend the saloon from all sorts of threats. If it's a more realistic game, it could be a human opponent, of course. But if you're handling sort of like a fantasy game, or Weird West type of threat, it could be zombies or dragons, gunslinging orcs. It could be pretty much anything. So the map for the saloon is very flexible and offers a lot of options for some interesting encounters, whether they be of a more social nature or maybe it's a combat type of situation. And then we have the sheriff's building and the barbershop. I think these two buildings could go quite well placed next to each other, because maybe there is a gunfight and each of the opposing forces uses one of the different buildings as a sort of like a base or barricade. So you could be shooting at each other through the different windows. Maybe some outlaws are trying to rescue some of their men from the prison, and they're using the barbershop as a way to get to them. And of course, the forces of the law will be protecting the sheriff's building with all of their might and their firepower. So this place is quite useful to have those situations of perhaps rescuing someone or keeping that certain someone out of the law from being rescued. I also think this could be a place to gather some clues, but also some quests. Maybe you are working for the sheriff and you come back to this building time and again as you are hired for different tasks. And then we have the smith. Now, I think this building is great, particularly if you are running something along the lines of the Weird West, or perhaps something Wild West fantasy, because maybe you want to create some unusual weapons and vehicles. You could use this smith as your workshop, or hire the smith to work with you or for you. Because, for example, what if one of the characters lost his arm during a fight, and maybe you would go to this building to create a prosthetic, just like the one created for Guts von Berlichingen. Or maybe you want to create some unusual steampunk type of tank or a carriage of sorts. This is the place to work those things out and to come up with some unusual creations that could give you an edge during the next battle. And then we have an entire map, specifically of the town, of the frontier town. I think this is a great map for some wild skirmishes, such as that in Wild West Exodus. You could use the layout of this town and the surrounding areas to have some interesting fights. This map is quite similar to the full color poster map, but I think that if you prefer a bit more clarity when it comes to the blue and black and white layout, you could find this map a bit more useful, because the full color map looks really beautiful and more suited to present it to the players. Maybe it's their own map of the region. Maybe the characters are traveling across the different areas and they can use that for reference. But for you to plan out some things and play around with the different elements of the map, I think you will find this black and white and blueprint type of map more useful. And then we have the train station. This is a great place for some climactic battles. Maybe you're trying to escape from town, or maybe you are trying to catch someone before he leaves, taking the next train. So some exciting chases could be carried out, reaching the train station and having a showdown at that train station. And there are just many places that you can use to hide behind a certain scenery element. And of course, if the characters are traveling far, they will have to visit this train station, and it could serve as an important place to gather more information about the place that you are going to. So as you can see, all of these maps serve for so many different situations, regardless of whether it's Wild West specific or if you're just playing a game that has some elements related to the Wild West or a frontier feel to them. Now, what do I think overall of this Wild West box set? And well, it's great. All of the 01 games products that I have reviewed are awesome. If you're playing something more realistic like Aces and Eights, or if you're playing something more on the fantasy side of things, perhaps Pure Steam, that's setting for Pathfinder, or perhaps you are playing Owlhood Trail, or maybe if you're playing something more on the Weird West side of things like Deadlands, you will find all of these different sites and the layout of the region extremely useful for any type of situation, of adventure, of battle. Even some games that are not specifically Wild West themed, for example, Blood Shadows, that have some places that feel a bit away from more civilized places, or you want like a frontier flavor overall, I would highly recommend that you get this Wild West box set. And of course, if you play skirmish games or war games of the Wild West theme, like for example Wild West Exodus, well, this is the perfect box set for you to come up with some interesting battlefields. I highly recommend that you get this Wild West virtual box set. Thanks for watching my review. If you have any comments or questions, please let me know. See you later.